Hello everyone, I'm Kimberly from Sweet Red Poppy, and I am so excited to be hosting the show on Hometalk today, the world's largest DIY community for home and garden. If you're tuning in on October 25th between 7 p.m. EST and 7:30 p.m. EST, I will actually be live in the comments to answer any questions that you might have. So if you have questions while you're watching this, be sure to leave them below so I can get back to you on those. On today's episode, I am so excited to share with you, we are making these giant paper flowers. Now these are so fun to make. I'm going to walk you through them. I have tons of tips and tricks to share with you. Just look at all of these beautiful flowers behind me. They are so great for parties. So if you have a birthday party that's coming up, maybe an anniversary party, a wedding, or even if you want to decorate your nursery, you have a little baby that's coming soon. These are so fun. Hang them on the wall. It doesn't cost very much to make them, so low budget activity, and they really have a wow factor to them. So we're gonna go ahead, dive right in on our supplies and get started on this tutorial. Go ahead and let me know, where are you tuning in from today? I want to know where you guys are watching from, what you're planning on making with this tutorial. Do you have a fun activity that's coming up, maybe a party that you want to host and you're going to use these? These are so fun for backdrops too. If you have a photo shoot that's coming up, these are fun. To get started, you are going to need cardstock paper. This is the cardstock I use. I got all of my supplies from Joanne, and I usually recommend for a flower that's about medium size, you'll want probably around 25 pieces of this 12 by 12 paper. You'll also need a cake plate. Now this is going to be the base of your flower. So I'm just going to turn this flower around. You can see on the back, little cake plate, and this is what allows you to hang it. So you can put a command hook on your wall and hang it up, and then you're not going to worry about damaging your wall. Makes it super easy and sturdy, which I love. You will also need your pattern pieces. So this is a free download, and it is available on sweetredpoppy.com. You can go there, download all of the free flower patterns, and you can use them in a few different ways. If you have a smart cutting machine like a Cricut or a Silhouette, you can download the SVG file, upload it into your design space, and then cut them out with your Cricut machine or your smart cutting machine, whatever type you have. And that's so nice because you get really perfectly round edges if you do it that way. It's also nice for the more detailed parts, like we have the center. This one, it's really great to use a cutting machine on that. But if you don't have a cutting machine, the good news is you can still participate in this project. You'll just be cutting them with a pair of scissors. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. We will get started in just a few minutes on that. You'll also need this little rolling pin. This is what's going to help you to get these really realistic looking flower petals. And some wire and wire cutter. This is what we're going to use to hang everything. And my handy dandy glue gun. This is an instrumental part of our operation today. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm just gonna clear a little space so we have room to work. So let's push all of this out of the way. And again, let me know, where are you guys tuning in from today? I want to know where you're watching from. How did you find Hometalk? And if you are watching Hometalk today, make sure that you've subscribed to the channel. That way, when there's other Hometalk DIYers that are coming on live, you'll get notified and you can watch more videos, learn how to do more fun crafty stuff. We love doing that, right? So I have my cardstock right here. And what I like to do is I will usually take 2, 3, maybe 4 pieces. It really depends on the type of scissors you're using. If you're using a really strong pair of scissors that have a spring in them, you could probably do 4 or 5. If you're using just a regular pair, probably 2 to 3. And I have my patterns here, and I've actually pre-cut them so we don't have to wait around for me to cut them. So this is what they look like once you've cut them out of paper. One thing to note is that this one does get taped together. So you can see that on the back. That one actually is a little bit larger than our printer paper. So what I want to do is put this on top of my paper. And can we zoom in on this just a little bit? So I am just going to lay this right here. And what I like to do is take a white pen or a pencil and draw these in. And what I'm always thinking about, I want to save paper as much as possible. I want to reuse things. That way I'm saving money, I'm being efficient with what I'm using. So what I'm gonna do is just quickly draw an outline of this. And the nice thing is you only have to draw this a few different times because you are cutting through multiple layers at once. So you don't have to draw it every single time. And I do have some tips and tricks when you're cutting. There's a few things to keep in mind just so you get really good results. So I'm just gonna draw around my templates. And if you're planning on making a lot of different paper flowers, it's a good idea to print these out on cardstock. That way you have a sturdier base. You could even laminate them if you plan on using them a lot. That way they're just a little bit stronger and you don't worry about them getting messed up during the process. So I have my scissors, I have my 3 pieces of paper. I want to make sure they're lined up, and then I want to grip the corner and make sure that you're gripping this side as well as this side, because as you cut, your papers are going to want to kind of flare open. You don't want that to happen. You want everything to stay together. So when I start, I want to use as long cutting strokes as possible. And the reason for that is it's going to give you a smoother edge all the way around. So you want to open your scissors all the way and then cut all the way until they close, and then repeat that process. And that's just going to give you a nice edge that isn't jagged. As you come to this side where you're turning, make sure you're gripping the paper really strongly, really firmly, so that it doesn't spray open. You don't want it to flare open at all. And just go nice and slow on this curve. So you don't want to have those jagged edges. So I'm just cutting around here. And one of the things I like to do when I'm making a lot of these paper flowers, I like to turn on a movie, sit on the couch, and then just cut out tons of pieces of paper, because it's a little bit monotonous and you don't need to, it's nice to have background noise or something to watch, something to kind of take your mind off of it while you're doing it. That way it's not so boring. I'm gonna cut out my little tiny one as well. So go ahead and let me know any questions that you guys have as we're going through this. This is cardstock I'm using. It's from Joanne. The brand is Basil, and I think it's a 65-pound cardstock that I'm using. And I'm just using some Fiskars scissors. Okay, we have those cut out, and I've actually cut out some of them beforehand. So this is the largest size. So what I want to talk about is how we're going to give our flowers some realistic shape. So let me pull this flower over. You can see, if we zoom in a little bit on this flower, you can see how these flower petals just kind of curve over. It looks really natural. It looks like if you were in real life and you looked at a wild rose flower, it's kind of what it would look like. It has this natural beauty to it. So what we need to do is prepare our pieces so that they have some of this curve to them. Now I like to take a stack of maybe 4 or 5. I find you get the best results when you use a stack of them instead of just doing them individually. What you want to do is take your little roller, pinch with both fingers, and if you want to zoom in on this, I'm going to get a closer look, and then I'm just going to curl, and I like to hold it for a few seconds just to make sure that that is really holding on there. And I'm just going to roll it back and forth a little bit and just help it to have a nice curve. See how pretty that looks? And you can even take your hand and roll back and forth just to make it look nice and pretty. And the fun thing is every petal you make is going to look a little bit different, which is nice because in real life, a wild rose flower is going to have variations. So you want those variations. So now that I've curled both sides, I'm just going to go back and forth, putting a little bit of pressure on them. And that's just bringing those leaves in a little bit more. And then I even like to go like this. So see how I'm curving this? That's going to make the center of your petal come up a little bit. Just looks a little bit more realistic. So back and forth, and then these are ready to be cut. So I have this nice stack. I am just going to take my scissors at the base of my petal and cut in a few inches, maybe 3 to 5 inches. It really depends. If you're using the big petal, you're going to cut a little bit further. If you're using your small petal, see how different these are size-wise. then you'll cut in maybe just 1 or 2 inches. And then I like to spread these out. Just gonna clean off my area so I have plenty of room to work. And I spread them all out so I can glue them all at once. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're going to be creating this folded over little piece, and what this does is it gives it some vertical height. So if we just put it on our cake plate like this, it would just lay flat and it doesn't look very good. We want it to look realistic. So when you think about a flower, the center is going to be standing straight up, and then as it gets bigger, it's going to lay open more. So this is our largest piece. So on the outside, this is going to be the lowest that we have. So you kind of want to overlap this, and if you could zoom in on this, we have Kyle on the camera and he's just helping us out today. If we zoom in on this, see we have these 2 little pieces, and when we overlap them, it raises our petal up. The more we overlap, the more it's going to go up. Do you see that? So this is fun because you can play around with this to create a different look. On our smallest petal pieces, we really want to overlap them a lot. On our bigger ones, we only want to overlap a little bit. So really important to keep that in mind. And we also want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. So on the very outside, our petals are going to be rolling away from us. So make sure that they are placed in the right direction. And then I am just going to put a little dot of glue on each one. And I'm using just a regular hot glue on these. And some up here. And then I'm just going to overlap these just a little bit, and I'm going to squeeze and pinch these firmly until the glue cools down because I don't want them coming undone. And I just like to make a stack of them. And when you're making these flowers, if you're making a ton of them, I like to do everything assembly line style. So I will cut everything out, and then I will roll all of my petals, and then I will cut everything, and then I'll glue it all. And that saves you a little bit of time when you just do everything step by step like that. So I'm just pinching this firmly, just creating that little bit of height, giving it a little more height. So, and I can just check. And one of the things I like to do to make it look more realistic is to have some of my pieces are going to be a little bit higher and some of them are going to be a little bit lower, because naturally that's what you're going to get in nature. So I'm going to set these aside. These are all ready. And I have prepared some ahead of time. That way we wouldn't have to do all of them. So I have my little ones right here. I have some medium ones and I have some large ones as well. And let's go ahead and talk about how to make the hanger. So on our cake plate, we're going to make the hanger on the back that looks just like this one. And the way that I like to do this is I like to use some wire. You can use any type of wire you have. This is just what I had on hand. And then I use some wire cutters. And I'm just going to, can we get a close-up on this one? I'm going to cut into my cake plate. Now these cake plates, I just found these at Joann. It's from Wilton. And it's just a standard cake plate that you would use when making a birthday cake. But that one doesn't want to go through. But this is just great as creating a sturdy base for your flower. Really love this. So 2 little cuts on either side, and then I take my wire and I just kind of eyeball it. One about this much. I can use my wire cutters and snip that off. And I'm just gonna go around the back. Slide it through the back and then slide it through the front on either side. Let's make sure that you guys can see that. And just kind of make sure that it's even, and then bring this up and tie it around. Okay, same on this side. If you want, you can put a little hot glue on there just to make sure it stays in place. But that is what it's going to look like. And then it's great for hanging things. It's so sturdy and solid. You don't have to worry about your flower coming apart. So I'm gonna flip it over and start working on my flower. So I'm gonna pull this one out from below. So I did this ahead of time just to save us a little time. At this point, I want to stop and ask, are there any questions? Do you have questions on the materials we're using? Do you have any questions on the application or the process? I am live right now with you guys in the comments, so I can answer any question that you have. I can link you to the tutorial. Just let me know what you need help with. Kyle, are there any questions that you've thought of as we're going?
And you can get any craft paper at any of the craft stores. It doesn't really matter which one you
Any
use.
craft store you go to, you can find this cardstock. I usually recommend around 65-pound cardstock.
Okay.
And you can find any type of color that you can think of. So you could make this for any decor, any type of theme, which is so fun.
Wonderful to hear. And the cake plates, you can get those
And the
anywhere.
cake plates, you can find these at Walmart, you can find them at Joann. Any craft store that has a cake decorating aisle will have these, and they come in a variety of different sizes, which is nice because you can see behind me, I have tons of different sizes. So I have this little itty bitty one that I used a small one on. I have this big one that I used a larger size on. So depending on the size of flower you make, you can choose which size you want to use. And that just kind of gives you an idea of how big you need to make it. So I have this one that's ready to go. Just gonna give you guys a close-up. So I've gone around the outside of this cake plate and I've glued on each of my flower pieces, my petals. And one thing we didn't talk about is how many petals to cut out. So this really depends on the size of flower that you want to make. If you want to make, let's say this is about a medium sized flower in comparison to like this large one behind me or the small one. Usually I recommend between 8 to 10 of the largest pieces that you want to cut out, so this size. And then typically 8 to 10 of the medium and the small. And then the smallest one, the extra small, it really depends on what type of flower you want to make on the inside. So if you want to make this closed bud like this one, you'll need about double, so probably 16 pieces. If you want to make the open center, kind of like this one, you'll only need about 8 to 10. So good idea. I always like to cut out a few extra. That way, if anything goes wrong, maybe I over curl a piece or something gets ripped, then I have a few extra to pull from, and it's nice to not have to go back through the process and do it all over. Okay, so we are going to do some more gluing. I'm gonna grab these pieces. And can we get a close-up of what this looks like? And go ahead and let me know where are you guys tuning in from as you're watching this. I want to know where everyone's watching from, and if you're watching this and thinking, I want to make these, what are you going to make them for? Is there an activity you have coming up or a party? What are you thinking? I actually decorated my daughter's bedroom with these and they look so pretty. Okay, so I'm putting some glue in between. What I like to do is kind of stagger each of my petals. It makes it look more realistic. So I'm just going to slide this one in, and you want to press firmly on the petal until it's really secure. So keep doing that until you get all the way around. And I'm gonna skip that one over there because it's actually, you can always change how you're applying them just based on how full you feel it is. And just remember, push those down until they're really firmly adhered because you don't want them to accidentally fall off once you put them up on the wall. Then for the center, I have my smallest pieces and I'm gonna keep gluing them around. It's just the same exact process as before. Just putting them in between the other petals, kind of alternating them. The only difference is I am going to change the direction of a few of them once I get to the middle. Also, if you guys are going to make these flowers, make sure you tag me on social media at Sweet Red Poppy because I love to see what you guys are making with this tutorial. It's so fun seeing how you guys change the colors and change the look and what you decorate with. I love that. So just keep placing these in here. This is turning out so pretty. I'm just gonna pull these in just a little bit. Nice thing is the hot glue stays warm for a little while, so you can adjust things if you find that something doesn't look quite right or it's not placed where you want it, you can move it around while it's still warm and get that look that you really want. Okay, at this point, you can decide what type of bud you want to make. So let's see. Oh, my gold one fell down on the ground. Okay, so I cut this out on my Cricut beforehand. You could cut this out by hand, you could cut it on a smart cutting machine. It's totally up to you. I like using my smart cutting machine because it is a little bit of a trickier thing to cut. I'm gonna throw on a few more petals, just kind of eyeball it. And then I'm gonna attach my center. I love this gold center because it's kind of whimsical and it's so fun for parties. I feel like it gives a pop of gold or silver. You could do whatever color you want. So I'm just throwing in a few more petals. And then I'm going to put a big glob of glue on the back of this. And I have stacked 2 different pieces, just so it has a little more volume. One of the things I also did was I pulled all of these up and just kind of bent them a little bit. That way they stick up. So we want it to look realistic. And then I'm just, can we get a close-up of this again? And I'm just sticking it in the middle so you can see how pretty that looks. And if there's a little bit of white showing, you can go through and add a few more petals and just kind of cover that up. I think I'll probably add a few more or just move these ones around a little bit so you can't see it. And here is your flower. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, next up, I am going to show you how to make the closed center. So this is our other flower. This is the other type. And I want to show you how to make this beautiful close to center. So for this, we're going to need to cut out a few more pieces. This one is a little bit trickier, so if you're brand new to paper flowers, usually I recommend doing the open center, just because it's a little bit easier to get a grasp on. This one can be a little trickier, but I'm going to walk you through every step of it so you know exactly how to do it. So let's go ahead, cut out a few more pieces. Just going to trace this, if I can find my pen. Oh, here it is, it's hiding. Okay, so I'm using one template. Just gonna trace this quickly. And while I'm tracing this, why don't we open up, well, let's open it up for questions. What questions do you guys have as you're watching? What are you wondering? I can answer anything. I am live in the comments with you. So go ahead and ask those questions. Kyle, do you have any questions as you're watching?
And any kind of craft scissors will work for that, or?
Yes, you can use any type of scissors. So as I said earlier, if you use a sturdier pair of scissors, maybe that has a spring, you could probably cut through more layers, or if it's a sharper pair of scissors. I always recommend using these Fiskars scissors. This is my favorite. They seem to really stand up to crafting. And I tend to use and abuse my scissors, so I really like this pair. Okay, I'm gonna cut out one more set. And okay, in the comments too, let me know where you're tuning in from, where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to Hometalk. That way you get notifications when they go live, because they have so many fun DIYers who come on here and share crafty inspiration with you guys. And my pen just died. That's okay. We're just gonna cut this one out, and then I will show you exactly how to make that center. Okay, so remember, I'm using long cutting strokes through this because I don't want to have jagged edges. And can we zoom in a little bit on this? Remember, pinch hard so that it doesn't flare out. You want all of your pieces of paper just to stay together so you have evenly cut petals. Okay, so now we should have enough to make our center. What you want to do, what's a little bit different than before, is we're not cutting these in half and gluing them like we did before. We're actually going to make a T. And let's zoom in on this so we can see it really closely. So take 2 petals, lay them on the table in front of you, glue them together, so just a little bit of glue, and you're just going to barely butt them up against each other, and then let that dry. And then you're going to just bend right here, so you're creating a crease. What that does is allows your petal to stand straight up like it would in the center, in the bud. Okay, so we have both of them standing up. What I like to do is just curve these edges, and I just do this with my hands. You can kind of go back and forth just to get it to curl in a little bit. And then what you're going to do is bring them in together, and you just push them together until it looks kind of like this. And then you're going to place some glue on either side of the petal to hold it together. I'm going to put a little glue on this side of my petal and on this side. And then it's kind of like they're hugging each other. So you just pull it in, and you can make this bud as small or as large as you want. If you want it to look kind of open, you can leave it a little bit open. If you want it to be closed, you can make them really close together. Okay, so I'm gonna let that cool, and then I'm gonna start working on the next piece. On this one, I like to make kind of a cross and join all of these petals together. So a little glue on all of them. Then we're just going to bring them all in together. And I like to make this, so with the first one, we overlap them short just a little bit. With this one, we're gonna bring it in a little more, or we're gonna bring it out a little more, just so that it's bigger than the inside piece. So again, fold those up so that they're gonna stand up. Then I'm going to glue this into the center. You wanna press down firmly on this to make sure that it stays where you want it. Okay, so now that it's on there, I'm going to bring this one up. I'm gonna do the same exact thing, put a little bit of glue on the outside. This is just what's going to stick everything together. I'm gonna go ahead and do this one too. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is supposed to be a wild rose, so it can look a little bit messy because wild roses in real life are not perfect. So now I'm gonna bring this one up. And you're just gonna make it a little bit bigger with each leaf, kind of open up. Oh, and you wanna hold on to it until it cools, otherwise it pops open like that. So I'm gonna put a little glue on this side, and a little on this side. Hold this up, hold it in place. And I like to alternate the leaves just to give a more natural look. Over here as well. Pull this up, and then this one decided to come undone. And if you get some of these little hot glue gun stragglers, I like to call them, just pull them off, get rid of them so you don't have any issues there. Okay, so this is what the center looks like. You can keep adding to this if you want it to look a little bit more open, so you could fold this and kind of curl these. These are still my small pieces that I'm using. And just add it on like that. And then you could glue one side and just keep making a little bit bigger. And when you're done, you're just going to stick it. So obviously you wouldn't have this pretty center, you would just leave it empty. And then you stick this inside and kind of fill in around it. So that's how we get this closed center. It looks so pretty, so fun. I wanna know, which one do you guys like better? Do you like this open center or the closed center better? I like this one better, but I feel like most people like this one. But it's always fun to know. Thank you so much for tuning in with me today. It was so fun sharing this tutorial with you. Remember, you can get the free download at sweetredpoppy.com. And don't forget to subscribe to Hometalk because there's tons of live videos that are so fun learning new craft things. I will see you guys later.